Okay. Hello. I am going to, it is Shabbat, and today I thought, because my family's struggling a little with Shabbat right now, like how to do it, how to keep it, and keep it in a way that that we all agree on. So it's one thing to have little tiny children and do Shabbat the way the parents want to, but then when you have older kids, then it's just new seasons, right? So Shabbat is all about, obeying the command, but we do it throughout the seasons of our life. And so today I just wanted to mark what Isaac and I talked about this morning. So on my heart was, number one, what did Papa say to do for Shabbat? What is Shabbat about to him? And then look at how we have been celebrating Shabbat, the things that did actually work, the things that maybe didn't work so well. And then I feel like our Shabbat needs like a makeover. So I'm going to share with you what we're planning on, how we're going to make over Shabbat. So just bear with me. It's Shabbat. What else do you have to do, right? We're actually going to leave here in a little bit and go on a picnic. But I wanted to walk through this with you. So we're just going to write Shabbat, and we're going to talk about this wonderful day of Shabbat, the seventh day Shabbat. I wonder if you can see that if it's backwards. Backwards to me, if I look there, but maybe it's not to you. Okay, so first thing is, what is Shabbat to Papa? Okay, so we see the command, and in the command in Exodus, he says to rest, right? So it's for a rest. I'm going to talk about that in a second. He also says it is about, he says in that command, talks about remembering that we're not slaves in Egypt anymore. So no longer slaves, and then he talks about remember it because it's part of creation. So Shabbat is part of creation. It's about creation. So I'll write down creation. So these are things that Papa says Shabbat is about. And let's see, and then it's also, we know that Shabbat is the sign of the covenant, so it's a sign of you being in contract, of people being in contract with him. So it's the sign of the contract, basically. Okay, and then if we look at what Yeshua did, who is our rabbi, we looked at what Yeshua did on Shabbat. We see that he healed people. He was with people. He loved people. He was loving on people on Shabbat. So he was caring for other people on Shabbat. So let's put, how do you want to say that? Like, let's see, let's talk about loving on other people. We'll do that. Loving on others. So we can see what Yeshua did, right? All right. So Shabbat. So we see that basically, there might be some more things I'm not thinking about right now, but basically we see that Shabbat is about rest, our mind and our bodies, and that would be basically not doing regular stuff, the same stuff that we've been doing all week long. So we're going to stop work. So maybe that's one. I need to say stop work. Maybe rest, stop work. Maybe that, I should add that there. So stopping what we've been doing all week long, the same thing. So from the routine, you're going to stop in the middle of everything not done. You're going to actually stop and take a rest. And what that rest looks like is, that's what we were like talking about this morning. It's like rest looks different on different people, but it also looks different in different seasons of our life. So the rest thing, I think that is like very open to some personal interpretations on what rest looks like on you, what it looks like on me, that particular week or in that particular season of your life, right? But to really remember that we're no longer slaves in Egypt, I think is the major point. They're not only the major point being our bodies need it. He created our bodies to need that reboot time, but also to remember we're not slaves. So the idea that you can stop work, sometimes it can feel like you're slaves all week long to whatever work you do, whether it is for someone at a company or whether it is for yourself, whatever it is, it can feel like you're slaves because you're slaves to, it feels like we're slaves to the systems right now that rule us. You need money, so you have to work or you have to earn it. So, but to be able to stop in the middle of that every seventh day and say, I am not a slave, I don't have to feel like one. So this is the day set apart by the Creator for His people to remember that you're not slaves, that He is setting us apart, that He has set us free, right? So, yeah. So just to remember, I'm talking about the seventh day Sabbath. I'm not talking about some crazy other sort of Sabbath, the lunar Sabbath or Sunday Sabbath. That's ridiculous. It's not the same day. So Sabbath, seventh day, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seventh Shabbat. Okay, all right. Anyway, and then creation. Shabbat is about creation. So to spend time in nature and remember that we came from the dirt, we're going to go back to the dirt and then also looking at the beauty of what He created, because He created all that week, and then the seventh day was when He looked back and said, it is all wonderful, it is good, I'm going to take a rest now. Not that He needed one, but He established that for His creation to have a rest. We were actually talking this morning, I wondered if like the animals rest on Shabbat, if there's, I don't know, I think that would be a really interesting study to see animals in nature, like what do they do on that day? Is there something special about that day for them? I don't know, I think that'd be a fun study. Okay, and then the sign of the covenant. So Shabbat is also, we're told it is a sign of the covenant. So if you're in contract with Him, then Shabbat is a sign. It's like an engagement ring that you are betrothed to Him, that you're keeping it because you are His, and you're betrothed to become wedded at the marriage supper of the Lamb someday. So that is also what Shabbat's about. So how can we set, I'm going to talk first, I'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, and then also how Yeshua, He loved others, He helped others, He healed others. I mean, wow, if we as His priests were empowered to heal each other, then that would be a great way to spend Shabbat, I think. Not just to go visit people at the hospital and say, oh, I'm so sorry you're sick, bye-bye, but to actually do what Yeshua did, which was to heal people, right? So that, I think we all have quite a journey to take on growth, huh? I know I do for sure. So basically, my family and I'm just going to walk this through for myself, okay? It's just for myself. But, we stop work, yes. So whatever we've been working on all week long, in school, Isaac's in school, I've been in school, and starting a new business, anything like that, anything that revolves around what we're doing to earn money or make money, that stops. Like we don't do it from sunset Friday night to sunset Shabbat night. We don't do anything that has to do with that. We take a break. So we stop work and then we rest, right? And rest, I think that's where we're as a family trying to figure out, we're in a new season. So like, what does rest look like now? When we were at the teepee, rest looked like physical rest, like not doing any chopping wood, anything like that. I didn't do much of cooking at the teepee. It was just too hard. It was a hard life. So the rest was very, very physical when we were at the teepee. Now it's not, our life isn't so physical all week long. So it's not so much hard physical work all week long. So rest is a little bit different. I need mental rest. And that comes and goes. So rest is, I think it's a personal thing, but I think it's something that we need to think about if we're going to obey the command of Shabbat and really enter Shabbat well. It's something that I'm trying to do, and in a new season of life, how do we do that? And you know what, I've been processing this ever since the beginning. Like, Shabbat has had, I'm going to share with you like what Shabbat has been for us and how it has been great. There's been great seasons and there's been hard seasons, and I think we're in a hard season right now, so I'm trying to figure it out. I wonder if you are trying to figure it out, then let me know in the feed below, and let me know what you do for Shabbat. Let me know some things that have worked really well for you on Shabbat, and tell me about your family, like how many kids you have, if you have kids, how old they are, that sort of thing, and when it worked well, like in what season of your life did what work well for celebrating Shabbat and for setting it apart and resting according to the commandment. Because I think we all need each other's help with this, because it can be really tricky, especially like right now, you know, especially if you're single and you're all alone. I think that would be really tricky, and because Maggie's dealing with that right now. Or if you have no little children, I kind of think that would be a little difficult too, at least for the entire day. I mean, that might not be so difficult, you know, sleep in, you know, take care of each other for a few hours, whatever, but the day itself, that's a long time to just kind of just take care of yourself. So we need to think through this and figure out what will be what is the best, most honorable way to spend Shabbat that Papa will be pleased with, right? And that will do what he's asking us to do. So we just talked about, let's see, first it was no work, then it was resting, then it was creation. So getting out in creation, getting out in nature. You know, I love going to the beach on Shabbat. I love hiking on Shabbat, going into the woods. That's the way I grew up. So I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, as most of you know. Well, if you don't know, then now you know. But my dad, Mom would always take us out to nature on Shabbat. That was the big deal. Big deal to be out on Sabbath. It was called Sabbath. So we didn't do a lot of beach though. It was more hiking, more in the woods, that sort of thing. With our girls, since we were near beaches and we're more beach people, then that's kind of been our focus, is go to the beach on Shabbat. But also hiking, lots of little private hikes to hiking to private beaches, that sort of thing. Try not to be too commercial. We try to stay away from, you know, a lot of the same stuff we see every day. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but anyway, then this being in the sign of the contract, you know, being in sign, so it'd be the idea of keeping it. So that's what we're doing. We're keeping it. We actually set it apart. We have a little ceremony at the beginning of Shabbat. Last night, you know, we set the table pretty, have the candles, have challah and wine, and remember the covenant that we're in with Yeshua, with his blood and his body. So we do that every time to kind of enter Shabbat. We used to do Havdalah on the end of Shabbat, but as the girls grew older, it kind of faded away. It's kind of coming back a little bit, but I'm not being really proactive in that. I need to be more proactive in closing Shabbat. But we set it apart. So that's keeping this part, like showing Papa that, yes, we want to be in covenant. Yes, we're going to keep Shabbat. How do you set it apart? Well, here's how we enter it. Here's how we, you know, live it. So that's what we're trying to do right now, right? Okay. And then Yeshua, how he loved others on Shabbat. So trying to figure out how to apply that when there's no corporate system that we belong to that offers, you know, a ton of opportunity that's easy for that. So the system I grew up in when I was little had a multitude, a plethora of opportunities to go help people and love on people on Shabbat. Actually, on Sabbath, you go visit the elderly. You could there was lots of different things that we could do when we were kids growing up, and that's lacking. I think that is a really big part of a healthy Shabbat, and I have that in the back of my head from how I grew up. and I have not been able to implement that for my children. And this whole time I've been trying, and it just, nothing has worked. So that has been a real sad thing in my heart, not being able to have that. And then also like the community of people where when I was a kid, we would go visiting on Shabbat. Like you'd actually like, you know, leave church, go to someone's house for dinner or whatnot, but you could also go visiting. So you could drop in on people, and you just don't do that today anymore. I don't think people appreciate that like they did when I was a kid. And I would appreciate it. I would love it. I would absolutely hands down love it if I had visitors. So that is basically what I see. I think there's some other things I'm not thinking of right now, but basically those are the basics of Shabbat. Stop work, rest, think about creation. Remember, you're not slaves in Egypt. Think about creation, his creation, what he did, and then keeping it as a sign of being in contract, as well as looking at what Yeshua did, so that we have a well-rounded view of Shabbat. Okay, so then I just wanted to kind of go over just what has worked for this family, what we have done in the past. So let me, I think I use red. So the very first thing we did for Shabbat was we had people over for Erev Shabbat dinner. So that worked fantastic. We did that for years and years. We had a little house downtown where we did that. So, I mean, I was starting to plan Shabbat on Wednesday. Like, who's coming over on Friday night to open Shabbat with us? What am I serving? You know, do I have enough dishes? Do I have the tablecloth cleaned? You know, all this stuff. And then I would start shopping on Thursday. Then on Friday we would clean, and I would cook and get all ready. So then Erev Shabbat would come, you know, the close of that day, and as soon as the sun set, and then people would come to gather around our table to eat, you know, and light the candles and eat the bread and the wine. And then we had meal and had great conversation, and we'd talk to like stupid 30. It was awesome. Well, okay, not stupid 30, but I'm not awake too much later after a little glass of wine. But anyway, point being is that it was wonderful, and the girls and I love to start planning it early in the week, you know, and then you clean up for the next part of the week, so you have Shabbat all the way through, and then clean up on Sunday and Monday, you know. So, you know, I love that rhythm. So I'm going to put Erev Shabbat guests. Erev Shabbat guests. Erev Shabbat guests over. So that worked super well. We did it at the teepee. So we did it downtown, but we also did it at the teepee. And people would actually come up and they would be so excited to have, you know, an experience in the teepee with us, and to have it on Erev Shabbat Friday evening was super fun. So that worked really well. Okay, and then, and then we had, when we were in the log cabin, we had Shabbat in the woods is what we called it. So Shabbat in the woods. So we had Shabbat in the woods. So that was basically a gathering. We actually had a gathering at our house on the day of Shabbat. And prior to that, when we were doing it on Erev Shabbat, the Friday evening, that's when we had the assembly or friends over or whatnot. For us, that worked super well, because then it left the day open for actual resting, right? So, you know, when you host something on the day of Shabbat, for the host, it's not restful, people. So it can be super stressful to have an open home on Shabbat, on the Shabbat day. I mean, that's not rest. At least it wasn't for me. But the time when we did the Shabbat in the woods, it was good. It was needed at the time in our life, and that during that season in our life, that was needed, and it was good for a time. It ended up not working out the way that we thought. It just, you know, when you ask people to come over and you open up your home in a it's not really a neutral environment, and so a lot of things can happen that, you know, just the environment itself asks for. So we probably will never do that again. If we do something like that, which I'm going to talk about in a second of our goals for Shabbat now, it was going to be in a neutral location. So it's not just revolving around one family. That's just asked for a lot of trouble. Though it was super good at the time. So people came over at 3, I think 3:30. They brought something for a potluck dinner. And we had some music. Once I learned how to play the guitar, played some music, we just socialized, and then had, like, I taught something, or Isaac and I both taught something. And since it was our home, that's what we did. We wanted to teach. We didn't really want to leave the floor open for everyone to teach. It was our home and felt like that, and we were Teshuva Ministries, so that's what we did. And sometimes the kids afterwards would play outside, go on a hike or whatnot. So that was super fun. That was really good. That was a good time. Okay, so then that was called Shabbat in the Roots. Then when we went to Boise, and I went to school there, and I was Hebrew Roots Club president. Then the club itself, I decided, and the treasurer and I decided that we were going to have an Erev Shabbat dinner that we would provide for college students. So every Friday evening, I made dinner and packed it up and took it to the Biblical Studies Center, and we had a room there, and we decorated just before everyone came, and we lit the candles and had bread and wine and had a wonderful dinner and had lots of conversation. So that was fun too. So I'm going to put college student Erev Shabbat, BSU college event on Friday night. Okay. All right, and then just some other things that have worked super well. One thing is Isaac and I were doing a Shabbat morning date every morning. That was fun. So the girls would still be asleep, and him and I would duck out, and we would go find a little coffee shop to have some time together to talk and to just chill. That was super good. That was really good. The only problem with that is that by the time we got back, we hadn't eaten breakfast, and so he was super hungry, which lended to grouchiness. So that was a trick. So I'm going to put date morning. That was super fun. Date with hubby morning. Okay, so that was fun. But one of the things that worked really well was when Maggie, she had a little Shabbat morning tea that she was doing. So she would, when she got up that morning, we were gone, and she would get up and she would make little scones. Scones is just a little tea, like a little English, very British style kind of breakfast. That was awesome because we could come back and then boom, she had that beautifully decorated on the table. So that was her offering to Shabbat, and I really like that, and I wish she'd do that again and invite us. Okay, maybe we can do that some. So I'm going to put Maggie's Shabbat tea. So Maggie's Shabbat tea. Okay. And then, okay, so then one of the things that worked really well was when we had the Happy Hippie Hebrew Girl show. So we did that for 2 years. That one, well, 1.5 really, but basically two fall to springs. That worked really well. That was cool because it was steady. It was, we knew that was coming. We planned for it. It made Shabbat a little hectic for us, and it made it not very restful for me at all. It was restful in a different way. Like, it was restful because I was focused and I knew what I was doing on that day, and I got to meet with some ladies. But it was a stressful thing to find internet because I didn't have a studio. It was like I was going, we were in a storage, ended up in a storage unit. We were going from coffee shop to coffee shop and just trying to library to library, trying to find good internet. So that actually was super stressful, that part of it. But just looking back on it, for me and the family, it was really good to have that routine and to be able to offer, something good to Israel for Shabbat was cool. So I'm going to put Happy Hippie Hebrew Girl Show. 3H, how did I say that? 3HGVS. So that was cool. And then a couple things, let's see. When we were at the teepee, we did something called Shabbat books. So that was something steady that we did at the teepee. Is we had, each person had a Shabbat book that we handmade, and we would put our scriptures out on the floor, and we would pick a topic, and we would do a little word study, or not just a topic, but one verse. And we would create this little art project around that one verse in our Shabbat books. So we'd do some study, do some art with the girls when they were little. That was super fun. So we did Shabbat books. So I'll write that here, Shabbat books. We also tried one time, for a little bit of time, we tried going to other people's houses. So we were in a community where there was a group of people who everyone wanted to try their hand at this. So it was Friday evenings, it was our Shabbat, they came to our place, and then the next week we went to their place, and then the next week we went to the other person's place, and the other person. So it was kind of going to be a kind of a round robin, I guess is what it, and that was really cool. But it didn't go very long. Got a little bit, not too many people wanted to keep doing that. So that didn't happen any more than just a few times, but I thought that was a cool idea. And then one of the cool things that Isaac and I had at the teepee was on Friday night of Shabbat, we would get everything ready for a bath. Now, if you don't know what our life was like, it was off-grid, and we had a cast iron clawfoot tub that was down a trail in the woods, and there was a fire underneath it. So we put a fire, built a fire in the afternoon, filled the tub, put a fire underneath it in the afternoon, and it took about 4 hours for that water to get hot. And so we had that ready for Erev Shabbat. It was a tradition. We'd light tiki torches all the way down the trail to the bathtub from the teepee. The girls, they would be up there, and I would go down and I would bathe because I liked it hot, really hot, 112. And then Isaac would come at 110 or so. Then he would come down and he would get a bath, and then the girls, I think Maggie was 109, and then Hadassah liked it 105. So that was one of our traditions. That was fun. In the situation we found ourselves in, that's how we ended up trying to celebrate and mark Shabbat, was have a really nice warm bath. For people living off grid, you know what I mean. That is super special. Okay, so that's like what we have done that has worked for setting Shabbat apart. Again, we do a lot of beach time, we do a lot of hiking and fighting. That seems to be part of it, unfortunately. I think it's because when you stop, you just everything like crashes into you. So you're like all week long, all the stuff that hasn't gone well or whatnot, it kind of like all piles up, and then you crash into each other on Shabbat because you're stopped, right? So yeah, it's just, the idea is to try to, what I think is the idea is to try to eliminate that. There are ways that I think somebody with some courage can eliminate some of that fighting by creating, somebody taking charge of the day, So to come into the day with no plan, that's like a disaster waiting to happen. And so like today, I had no plan. And so we had issues of what are we doing? The conversation, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And it's like, but mama needs a break too sometimes. So mama can't always be the one to be planning it. So I really want to have things settled for what is happening on Shabbat. Sleeping in is great at different times of your life, sleeping longer, whatnot, whatever. But that's where I just really need to figure out how to plan Shabbat so that the fighting doesn't happen, so the irritation and whatnot in the closed quarters. So this is my plan. So check this out. This is not my plan. This is our plan. Well, you know how that goes. The family's plan is the mama's plan. Mama's plan is whatever. Anyway, so I've got a plan for trying to figure out how to take Shabbat and live it well during this season of my life. And I've had these ideas for a long time, but I've never been able to implement them. and I'm still not able to implement them, but it's a goal that I have. So what I want to do is a thing called the place. And then I want to do something called Shabbat Chalet. Chalet. I think it was chalet. Okay, so basically I'll just explain these two things and then we're gonna go have our picnic. But basically, like, the place. Okay, so when I was in college, I remember, and so I was at a college that kept Sabbath. So on Friday night there was a thing they had called the place, and it was in the hospital. It was down below, somewhere in some rooms down below, but it had a little auditorium, and they would bring in people to play music, and they had free Martinellis. I mean, it wasn't, nobody drank alcohol in the religion I grew up in, but they had like Martinellis and stuff and special drinks. And so I ended up going there as just, patron sort of thing, and it was so fun. I ended up working there, not working, but like serving. So it was just free volunteer sort of stuff that you do. So, I had a little tray with drinks, and I'd go through this crowded space of all these college students dressed up, coming to hear music, coming to get a little drink, coming to have some set apart time, different than the whole week. So I want something like that for whatever community I end up in, this one or wherever I go. I want to, maybe I could just nationalize it, I don't know, but I would really like to have what's called the place. Maybe I'll change the name, but something like that, where there's it's open, and people who celebrate Shabbat can come, Jews and and Israel, Gentiles, it doesn't matter, like people who just want to keep Shabbat and have a way to open it that is lovely and fresh. I think I need a makeover. Shabbat makeover is what I need right now. So I'm thinking along those lines, but the idea of like some drinks, everything free, drinks, some food, some good music, maybe. And I'm a girl that I like plan, I like procedure, I like something to have a program. So I'm not just saying just free for all, but have some teaching, and not just anyone getting up either, but have, controlled, that sort of thing, from Teshuvah Ministries. That's what I want. That's what I see as a place for I know a handful of kids, like teenagers, who would be like on that in a second, in a heartbeat. So it's different. Like I say, hey, why don't you guys come, teenagers, I'm talking to teenagers, why don't you come over to our house for dinner? Not gonna happen. As fast as it would happen is, hey, why don't you come to the place and hang out with the crowd that night, and they would be there in a heartbeat. They've told me that. So I really want, I had one teenager tell me one time, he's like, if you provide food, music, social, you can teach me anything. And I'm like, yes, I just gotta get this. So I got food, music, social, and a place to hang out, and then I want to teach. Anyway, so that's my idea. To I'm gonna use tithe money to do that, and hopefully I'll get it funded so that it can just go on its own. But we'll see what happens. That's one thing. And then the other thing is a Shabbat Chalet, and that's for the personal family, private thing. So the idea is to have a separate location for Shabbat. So here in the apartment, it is so hard to rest. And Shabbat, when I see everything, Hadassah does a great job cleaning. In fact, Hadassah's my cleaner. She's my Shabbat girl. On Friday, she cleans for Shabbat. She sets the table. Everything looks beautiful when she's done. So she does her darndest to set this day apart with cleaning and making it pretty. But I really want to leave for Shabbat, because it's just, my computer's sitting right here. I've got just everything going on here. So what I was seeing is a little Shabbat Chalet. Now all these places have to kind of be in the same location so that we can do this, but I was thinking, end of Friday, I work right up until the evening, and then we get ready, we dress up, we go to the place, and we hang out with friends, we do, have some music, kind of get our hearts in tune for Shabbat, start to calm down a little bit with candles and wine and juice and all that, the wine and the bread and stuff, and get our head straight with people around, and just lighthearted sort of stuff. And then from there we go that night to the Shabbat Chalet, where we sleep that night, and we've prepared that place. So during the week we've gone to the Shabbat chalet, we've prepared it with food and cleaned it, everything's cleaned and ready for Shabbat. Get there, crash in bed after the place, sleep there, sleep in. Maybe that Shabbat chalet is like somewhere where you can hike or by a beach or something, but someplace that's inspirational, someplace there, when you go there, it's Shabbat, with special dishes and all that jazz. Porch swing, that sort of thing, and teas and and stocked. And then in the afternoon, then you go, okay, let's go back to the place. We're gonna go meet some more friends at the place and hang out, have some more music, have some sort of Havdalah thing where you close out Shabbat. So it would be another evening spent at the place on either side of going to Shabbat chalet. And then on Sunday, you go back to both those places and you clean it. So I can drop the kids off and they can clean both places and make them all ready for the next weekend. And the beauty of that, I think, would be like the place. I could give a key to someone. If we can't do it, then I could give a key to someone and say, hey, go, open it up for people and let people come in for that evening and you do it. And then, for the Shabbat chalet, it's for our family, it's a personal thing, but if I wanted to give it as a gift in a weekend for someone, then we could have that to do. So those are my thoughts for Shabbat issues. I know that Shabbat, I don't know if people talk about this enough. I'm too busy to be online all the time looking for what people are talking about. I just know that this is something that is important to us, something that we're trying to figure out. There's a kitty. You have to have animals on Shabbat. Yes. Mwah. So anyway, just think about your Shabbat. Think about how it's going. Analyze it a little bit and stop and say, you know what, we need to relook at this, so that it honors how you're keeping Shabbat, honors Papa and what his goals were for Shabbat, which obviously were many, which I'm probably not thinking of, but basically stopping work, remembering that we're not slaves in Egypt anymore, and we can take a Shabbat rest in the middle of work not done, right? That's the thumbs up at, the way the system matrix, right? You're gonna basically thumbs up. I don't know that's not the right term, but that's basically just saying, you know what? I'm royalty because I'm a daughter of the king and I get this day off because he said so. So take a hike, so to the slave masters. And then remembering that we're in covenant by keeping it shows that we're in covenant. So it's important to set it apart, as well as thinking about creation and enjoying that and getting refreshed by what he has made for us, because we weren't made for it. Remember this, we weren't made for the trees were made for us. Okay, they're for our benefit, and our benefit is to, the nature heals us. So, and then, was that it? There was one other thing. You probably remember. And then what Yeshua did. Yeah. So that part, I was thinking with the place, there would be an opportunity to take care of other people somehow. So I just know the opportunities would open up if we had some of that. So that's our story. That's our journey with Shabbat, and something that I'm looking towards doing, hoping to do and implement as soon as possible. It'll be the first thing I implement when my business gets off the ground, because it's super needed right now. If you have to spend the seventh day, every seventh day, obeying this, I want to be able to do it in a joyful manner. I want to be able to do it in a way that it is going to serve us well, because remember, he says that Shabbat is for man. Man wasn't made for Shabbat. Shabbat was made for man. So I want to experience what Shabbat has to give us. I know, every Shabbat morning, we dream about, man, it'd be so cool to just go explore Jerusalem today, wouldn't it? Oh, that'd be so amazing to just go explore the old city today. So, someday that's gonna happen. Someday, I can't wait for that, and maybe sooner than later, but we'll see. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. I am going to go have a picnic with the family on the beach. Hope you have figured out what to do today to make it not just special, but to accomplish the goals of Papa. So stop and talk with your family about it, and then show me in the feed what you guys concluded, what you want to do with your Shabbat and how you're going to change it. So how are you going to give it a fresh look? What are you going to do for Shabbat to serve your family well? Okay. So just one of the other things I forgot to mention about Shabbat is like eating. So we eat, and everybody hangs on the fridge like what's to eat and stuff, and they're mad because there's nothing to eat because Mama hasn't made anything but a Shabbat because I don't want to make anything. But then sometimes I do make something, and but then there's a ton of dishes, and that drives me absolutely batty. When there is just tons and tons of dishes in the kitchen, I just cannot see the counter space. That makes me mad, so then I'll end up doing dishes. So I was thinking the Shabbat Chalet would kind of solve that, I hope, because and then with changing locations and stuff, so that everybody's not hanging on the fridge door all day long. But then also one of the things I was thinking about too was that it can be like really, Shabbat can be really hard if you don't feel good. And so like when you're slothful or like, that makes me not feel good. So exercise, I think, is something that I need to do on Shabbat actually to get moving and get that blood moving. Right, Isaac? Right. See, we're out here. We're out here to the beach. But yeah, I think stretching in the morning on Shabbat or doing something like that would be super helpful for me to get my blood moving and not feel lethargic. I think that's more the word I was looking for, is lethargic. I just can't stand feeling lethargic. And it gives me headaches, So, yeah. Anyway, Shabbat is a challenge. But we're up for the challenge, right? Right. Okay, bye-bye. We're out of here. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is how we're spending Shabbat. On the beach with a picnic and our paddleboard. Oh, good rest. Very, very good rest.